welcome to another episode of the Feature Presentation Podcast, where every week we take a deep dive into the trenches of independent filmmaking. I am your host, Derek Diamond, and this week's show is going to be a little different than what you've heard over the last 3 episodes. Unfortunately, my guest this week, Vernon Wells, was unable to make the show due to some scheduling conflicts. I'm not entirely sure what happened, but I do hope to reschedule him to come on the show at some point later on this year to talk about his amazing career, which is still going on to this day. The man's in his 70s, and he's doing more work than I think some of the actors in their 20s and 30s are doing. So really hope to have him back on later on in the year. But for this week, I was trying to think, what could I do to provide you, the viewers and listeners, with an episode? Because I don't want to skip a week with the show being so new. And then it kind of hit me from out of nowhere, and I felt like an idiot for not thinking of it instantly. I thought it would be a great idea for the fan base of this show, who may not have listened to my previous podcast, to hear the episode that I did back on the Derek Diamond Experience days, highlighting a short film that is very near and dear to my heart, Sur'vi, which was filmed in early June of 2017. So we just passed the 5-year anniversary of when Sur'vi was filmed. It was written and directed by my good friend and filmmaking mentor, Stephen Wise, and featured some great talent from here in the Pensacola and Gulf Coast area. And we held this panel back in early 2018 to talk about the making of the film. We talk about the initial idea for Sur'vi and how it evolved into what it became, with some of the cast and crew on their experiences and bringing the characters to life, talking about stunt coordination, the costume design, the sound mixing, the sound recording. We covered just about every aspect of this film. And since then, it has won 20 awards and has appeared in over 60 film festivals worldwide, which is absolutely mind-blowing, but it absolutely deserves it because it is a great short film. And had I not worked on this film, I truly don't think that my movie, The Parker Syndrome, would have ever been made. And I don't even know if I would be doing this podcast, because who knows if, my love for filmmaking, who knows if it would have been reinvigorated had I not worked on Sur'vi. So hopefully you all enjoy this fun look back at the making of Sur'vi. And I will say, before we really dive into the panel, for those who are watching on YouTube, you're only going to see a static image of the Sur'vi poster, because the panel was streamed on Facebook Live and I didn't record a high quality version of the video. So it's, to be perfectly honest, it's really bad and unusable. So those who are listening on the audio version, you won't know a difference either way. So enjoy this fun look back at the making of Sur'vi, and I'll see you on the other side. And tonight we're going to be discussing a film that I've been wanting to talk about for quite a while, the short film Sur'vi that all of us had the privilege of working on several months ago. And as you can see, I've got quite the panel. Someone might call it a ragtag group of people, but I like all of them. So first off, we'll start to my right. We have Miss Orphea herself, Gabby Faulkner. Welcome. We have Sur'vi herself, Anna Faulkner. How's it going?
Going great. Hi.
The guy who made it all happen, Mr. Steve Wise. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having us.
We have Chris Kubiak, who played Tanga. How's it going? Tanja.
Chris Kubiak not here. My name is Miguel Petrovsky. I stunt double in here country illegally. Yes.
Something like that.
Something.
And that's what we had to put up with the entire time.
Constantly.
Vilker himself, and also my co-host on the Nerd Cave Retro Show, as he's sporting on his shirt there, Mr. Jason Robbins. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Hey.
Shameless self-promotion.
That's right. Why you
The
think
best double in film, Mr. Deso Faulkner. How's it going?
It's good being dead and back. So
We have costume designer, Miss LaVon French. How's it going?
Hi, thank you for having us.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And we have Mr. Ray Alfafara. How's it going?
Doing great, thank you.
So I wanted to start. We'll start with Steve. So Sur'vi, we all worked on Sur'vi, and we'll get into the actual production of it itself. But what was the genesis of Sur'vi? Like, how did this whole idea come about?
Well, it actually started about a year ago from right now. I wanted to make a movie, and it had been a while since I had directed anything, and I started off basically wanting to do a heartfelt character drama with two people in a room talking. And then it turned into an action adventure fantasy with 5 characters, including a child actor in the woods with makeup effects and stunts. And yeah. So actually, Chris and I were kind of batting some ideas back and forth. And I had this idea that I really wanted to work with Anna. And because I knew that, first off, she is really good on screen. She had done a couple commercials for Pensacon, and I thought that she would be good on using a character, and
right.
creating a character. So, and I also knew that she was good with fighting, having seen her and her husband Desso at work with the Gulf Coast Lightsaber training group.
Shameless promotion.
Also, not domestic abuse.
So, anyways, I was trying to come up with ideas as far as what can I do to get her to fight using a weapon that's not a lightsaber, and I had the idea, well, how about a staff? Why would she have a staff? Well, if she's wandering through the woods in a culture that doesn't have modern technology, that would be a good weapon for her. And who would she be fighting? And so then we came up with the idea of this band of traveling highwaymen, if you will, who she has to confront. Well, why? What if she's protecting someone? How about a young girl whose whole people have been killed, and she finds in the middle of the wilderness and has to get her to safety? So the whole story kind of developed organically because of this idea of, I want to have Anna fight. So after coming up with the concept, I went home, wrote it, and proceeded to send it to various people here on the couch, and among others, and said, what do you think about this? And the reaction was generally pretty positive, and we took it from there.
So Anna, how did you feel when Steve approached you about, not just wanting to have you fight, but really like star in the film? What was your reaction to that?
Well, initially when he sent it to me, it was interesting because he was looking at it from a dialogue point of view. What do you think of the dialogue? Because the way Sur'vi speaks is very unique and different. So I was reading it, and I think he used the fact that I'm a history fan to kind of point stuff out. We were discussing it that way. And it never occurred to me being in it because I wouldn't assume that. I just thought, oh, it's an interesting, unique story. So one of the first things I've said to Steve is, next time, can I have full sentences? But it was unique. Mm-hmm. It's been enjoyable overall, the whole process of it. But that initial feeling was, I don't know how to describe it.
So I'm going to step in real quick because it was, I get home and Anna hands me the script to read. And then when I finish reading it, she says, what do you think? I like it. Good. Because Steve wants me to be this person. He says he wrote it with me in mind. Yeah, I totally see that. Okay. What's next? And that's kind of where it came from, was a complete look of shock from her. And just overwhelmed with being humbled, really, is where it came from.
What he said.
The main selling point was Steve went, Anna, how would you feel about punching Chris in the head? And she was like, "What? Do we have to do that on camera?" Or
that was later.
That was later. That was the final point.
Accurate.
Everyone here was like, I'll be in this movie.
Actually, I punched Remy in the head.
Yeah, Chris got his somewhere else.
We'll talk about that much later. Maybe off camera.
Spoilers.
It did spoil.
So, Chris, when Steve sent you the script, what was your reaction?
Well, I actually got when Steve said we were batting around ideas. It was one of our very late night, frequent Facebook conversations about film and about writing and things like that. So we were talking about what he would like to do, and of course, the idea of every time he talked about two people sitting in a room, I always thought about that scene with Samuel L. Jackson and Tim Roth in Pulp Fiction, that very intense, conversation that they have.
Yeah, that's exactly the type of thing I write.
Well, no, I mean, not like psychobabble, but, just like the intensity of like the camera angles and whatnot. And it, it just opened up from there. And then he sent me the script. And the first thing I said was, cool, like Mad Max. And he was like, no, not like Mad Max. And of course, we just kept batting around ideas. And then he was like, well, I'm going to write this. And I was like, oh, okay. Really? Because he hadn't, he would say, I haven't written anything in a while. And then all of a sudden it was like 2 days later, here's the script. What do you think about it? And it was awesome. It was really cool. He deconstructed the language of the characters to like fit all the thematic elements of what was happening in that world.
That was one of the cool things about it is he sent us a complete how to pronounce,
right,
like a glossary of how to pronounce all the words in the movie.
Yet some of us still got yelled at on set for not saying it right.
I can't imagine who that was.
I got no idea.
I think Steve stopped correcting me after a while. He was just like, screw it, just let him say what he wants to say.
Your voice sold it. No one cared at that point.
You had a window of opportunity to struggle through. I didn't. But he was like, hey, would you want to be in this? And I was like, of course. I live for this sort of thing. And he was like, well, do you want to be Vilker, who Jason wound up playing, who had these grandiose lines and this really great monologue, or Tanja, who got to fight? And I like to do that. And I've been trained to do some of that stuff. And I was like, I think that would be a lot more fun, is being able to just, I don't know, do action on screen, because never got to really do that before. So it was really cool. It was a cool experience just getting to the point of, hey, let's do this.
Mr. Robbins?
When I first read it, I fell in love with it. Like, me and Steve had kind of developed a friendship over the last year and a half. Just because I did monsters and everything, Steve kind of became my guru for like writing and things of that nature. I'm always bugging him about, hey, will you read this? Hey, what do you think about this? I know he probably gets sick of me sending him stuff all the time, but he said he had this idea for a story, and it was for Anna, but I had never met Anna before. Said he had the story in mind, and would I like to read it when he was done? I said, yeah, just send it to me as soon as you're done with it. He sent it to me it was 2 days later, and I fell in love with it because not only do I love sci-fi and fantasy and stuff like that, but it's the kind of thing you can't really pinpoint if it's like post-apocalyptic or if it's in the past or if it's like a parallel universe or something. You kind of can't. It speaks for itself, but it still leaves a lot to think about. How did things get this way? And I really wanted to be in it, but I didn't want to push myself and be like, hey, can I play one of the guys in the movie? And Steve was like, would you want to play one of the, the Marauders or whatever? And I was like, absolutely. And I knew that I would never in a million years be able to pull off the fighting scene. So I'm very glad that Chris did that. All I had to do was talk and look menacing the whole time. And then I got to play dead, and then he got to play dead for me for the rest of the time.
You didn't want to get flipped over on your back?
No.
12 times?
Well, if I can jump in here, too, as far as with the characters. Now, for most people have not seen the movie yet. So basically, we had a character dynamic where we had three, if you will, the villains. And Vilker, played by Jason, was the leader of the group. And then Tanja is kind of the scout that goes out and kind of is the tricky person. Then we had Urch, played by Remy, who unfortunately was not able to be here, Remy Rowe. And he was the kid of the group. And so anyways, when I wrote it, I pictured Sur'vi basically confronting Vilker, who's the leader of the group, and then fighting him. And, I wrote that kind of with Chris in mind, but then as I was looking at kind of the story structure, I realized it would be better if, without spoiling it, that Vilker is not the one that she fights. And in that way, we split up the characters a little bit differently. Well, at that point, that's when I came to Chris and said, okay, I've got a dilemma here because I know you like this dialogue and I know you want to fight. But I've given the two characters something different. And so I gave him the choice of what to play. And he decided he wanted to do the character of Tanja to fight. And so that's when I approached it. Initially, I wanted Jason, I asked him, hey, would you like to produce? And what was your response to that?
No.
Specifically, you told me the next day you were in cold sweat. So producing is...
It's not an easy job by no stretch of the imagination.
It's a lot of stress, a lot of logistics, a lot of pulling things together. You have to really have a unique personality to handle that and to do it effectively. And I know you've done it before. So, but with Chris taking on the role of Tanja, that opened up Vilker. And so immediately I went to Jason and said, I've got this role available. And fortunately he said yes. So.
Something that kind of blew me away when I started working on the sound edit, because I hadn't seen any of the footage from day one because I was only there for day two. So I didn't see any of Jason's stuff. When I went to do the sound edit, I went straight to his scene. I remember his voice just freaked me out.
Okay, so let Anna and I tell this story of the first time we heard Jason and his Vilker voice. So Jason couldn't make the first script rehearsal, and he had to Skype in, right? And of course, none of us had really met Jason. I mean, most of us in the podcast community, we know who Jason Robbins is.
I'm not a part of any of it. I don't know.
But, for Anna and for a few other people, it was their first time, like, really, seeing who he was, right? So Jason gets on, and just like this, very, charismatic and very nice guy, right? And then he's like, well, I'm doing something with the voice. So just tell me if you guys think it's okay.
And he does this.
Hello there.
And we all melted. We were all just like, well, say it again.
Hello there.
And we just kind of sat there for a good 5 minutes just having him repeat his lines. And he thought it was like, what, is it okay? And he didn't understand that on our end. We're going, oh, it's good. You're good.
And everybody
You're
back
fine.
to one.
Would you like to get my phone message?
So in that moment, as Steve said, I chose to play Tanja. I realized I made the right decision because I would have never been able to do that. And thank you for not embarrassing me sooner.
That actually is a good point. The dialogue right there, the accents actually played a lot into it because it helped us attach to our characters. Everyone started developing this feel for the world, like, oh, okay, well, what kind of dialect would they use over here? What accent for this? And we kind of started making up our own stories behind the scenes on why. And so his initial accent and that booming voice helped us realize that our ideas were okay, to not be embarrassed by it and just go with it.
Well, it's a lot easier. Because the thing with me is when I was reading the dialogue, I could not get that voice out of my head. The pronunciation.
We can't get it out of our heads.
No, not at all. No.
I can get like my voice really low and growly, so that it was just like, this is how I got to do it. This is how I got the accent to make the words sound natural, because a lot of the words are very. What did Harrison Ford say on the original Star Wars script? He's like, you can write this stuff, you can't say it.
Again, I got yelled at many times.
What about you, Gabby? Because you got to play Orphea, the orphan girl who Sur'vi has to help guide to safety. You were the first actor or actress anyone ever saw on screen for Sur'vi. So how was your time on set?
It actually made me really happy. It was really hot. was very interactive when the camera wasn't rolling. Everyone was having a really good time. So it actually made filming a lot more bearable in the weather that was Florida.
Well, that's actually a great point because, with film especially, you have to love it to be able to do it, because if you don't have the passion for it, you're going to be miserable because you're going to be on set more than likely 12, 13 hours a day. So if you don't have the passion for it and it's not what you love to do, you're going to find out pretty quickly that it's not for you.
Oh, the first time your sweat mixes with someone else's, you learn that you want to be there. Because you're just like, oh, that's interesting. It's an
I
special.
don't recall your sweat ever mixing with mine, so I'm glad I missed that out.
Yeah, I don't really recall that either.
It's an outtake.
There's an outtake of me shirtless running up to Steve through the field, arms spread wide.
Actually, what Gabby said is very true. We all ended up kind of developing this bond on set, not just because, the weather was bad, but there was just this energy, this bouncy, oh my gosh, we're really doing this energy from makeup chair to the costuming area to all of it. We're all just like, oh my God, we're here and we're doing this. And it was just a manic, fun, let's make this happen kind of feeling. And it never really went away. So now when we run across each other, it's we did that thing, and it like comes back to you.
And it's something kind of magical that you hear about, like in the behind the scenes for any of the big films, Star Wars, Harry Potter, any of that, where the people did big productions for years together. You hear about that, but you don't hear about how much it still applies even on a small production like this one.
Well, it's like she was saying, we get there. What time did we get there? Like 6 a.m. to start getting
Way early,
makeup
yeah.
and we're all goofing around then, and then there's this buzzing energy in the air, and then we go get fitted for costumes, and we're all standing there just looking like these crazy post-apocalyptic people with scars, and we're all like
taking all these selfies
awesome.
we can't post. Yeah,
Let's do this.
We're looking at each other like, you look cool. No, you look cool. Let's go kill each other. Like let's go fight. And just this energy of playing and the script. Sorry, spoilers. But it's this. What happens in the script, but you can't help but just want to hang out and do things while you're there.
It's exactly all it is just it's getting to play, cops and robbers when you're a little kid.
Yeah.
It's like you're a grown person playing or playing. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
All of us had a good time except for Steve, who looked like he was ready to kill some of us who were having too good of a time.
One person.
Hey, I was only there for one day.
All right. I'll just say this. I'm sorry that when I landed on Jason and I grabbed his ass and said sorry out loud while filming, I wasn't supposed to do that.
You don't break character.
We all turned and stared at you, just like, are you serious?
Like the entire crew was like, why would you say sorry? Like, I grabbed another man's ass without his permission. I mean, my mom brought me up right.
Just buy him coffee after. You're fine.
I got you, boo.
Well, getting back to Gabby.
Sorry, Gabby.
If I can say something here too, we didn't choose her right away. She earned her character. I was really concerned about finding an actress that could handle the character, even though it didn't have a lot of lines, just a handful of lines. She had to be on set a lot and in the woods and be all dirty and grimy and be okay with that. But primarily I was looking for someone that could act through expressions and emotions. And we put a casting call out. We had a number of young girls that submitted audition tapes, and we went through. Ray, were you part of the casting process?
I was supposed to be, but I couldn't make it, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, I didn't know. I couldn't remember if you had looked at some of the audition tapes.
You showed me after the fact.
Okay.
That was the only thing.
Well, anyways, we had a team of people that were going through and looking at them.
You had sent it to me too,
Okay.
and everybody that you sent it to all kind of came around the same consensus that she was the one.
Well, we did narrow it down to several.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we narrowed it down to several actresses, and we wanted to bring them in to see what the chemistry was like with Anna. My big concern was being mother and daughter. The characters are not mother and daughter. They're not supposed to be related. So how much did they look alike that the audience would immediately go, yeah, okay, you just pulled from the family instead of actually doing any actual casting. So I wanted to make sure that we chose the right person. And when we had the others come in and read, there were some very good ones. But for various reasons, we narrowed it down, and Gabby really was the right choice. But we did have a lot of conversations about that as far as, that can they play off each other and not have that mother-daughter chemistry, which is tough.
I don't know. I'm pretty good at ignoring her. I'm kidding. Actually, we had a thanks. We had a huge discussion about that when Steve approached us about her auditioning. We had been using her as a fill-in for all the stuff we were doing because Adesso and I were rehearsing every night, going over the different scenes, trying to get stuff down, and we needed someone there to help us. So she agreed to help us, but we'd already told her just because you're helping doesn't mean you're in it. We didn't want to feel like as a family we were cornering a film. We didn't want to come off as pretentious about it. But after a reading, Steve approached me, took me off to the side without her involved and said, I wanted to talk to you about her auditioning. Not here, you can have this, but would she like to audition? I said, sure. So we went through the same process as everyone else. He had a script that they needed to read for the audition, even though she already knew the lines from the script from us practicing. She had to submit a video, go through the whole process, and then my sit down with everyone treated them all the same. I didn't talk to them until Steve told me to, didn't interact with anyone until I was told to. And it was me kind of teaching her this is how it is. So it actually wasn't too huge of a learning curve for either of us. It just kind of fell into place naturally because of how we had approached it already. And then on set, we tried not to, in between takes, we might hang out, but on set, it wasn't mother-daughter. It was someone keeping an eye on her so I could focus on what I was doing and keep that kind of separation on set. So,
right.
And I think it worked out well.
I thought Gabby did a fantastic job.
Gabby, what was your perspective on that whole process?
The separation, the whole process of mother-daughter on set, all of that.
It felt like when you were doing chores at home.
Chores at home. Fair enough.
But what did you think about when you auditioned?
I actually thought I wasn't going to get the part because I feel I'm a terrible actress. But
well, we feel differently.
Yeah,
so modest.
You were great.
I think you're wrong.
So once the casting was done, what was the next step in getting Sur'vi made?
Well, Jason brought to my attention that he had successfully done a Kickstarter campaign, and he suggested that we look for money for crowdsourcing. Now, I was planning on just funding it myself anyways, and so it was going to be made one way or another. On what level budget, that kind of remained to be seen. So I tried my hand at, and I chose Indiegogo over Kickstarter because with Indiegogo, you can have a flexible campaign, which means even if you don't reach your goal, you can keep the money. And so I figured, even if I get $20 donated, that's $20 extra that I didn't have. Right. That will go to this. And
with Kickstarter, it's all or nothing. Like when we made Monsters Anonymous, we had to have a certain amount of money to make it, or it wasn't going to get made. So if we'd have done an Indiegogo or a GoFundMe, and we only made $1,000, then we would have had to make that movie for $1,000. There was no kind of buffer zone, so
no flexibility.
Well, in looking at what money we needed, we had makeup effects, we had certain equipment that we had to rent, we had just gas to get people to the location that were sometimes driving in from an hour away. I had hotel rooms I had to get for a couple people. We had food on the set that had to be paid for. That's a big expense. And let me tell you, you feed the crew and the cast well. When you're doing a film, especially one like this, where everybody's out in the hot sun all day, if you don't have good food, people are going to start resenting being there. So we wanted to make sure that, and fortunately, one of my Indiegogo campaign sponsors who came in as one of the producers provided food one day. And,
Yeah, it was the first day. Yeah.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Cheryl.
I think also, people should know that none of us actually made money. Like none of the actors took a paycheck or anything like that. All of the money went to just making the movie, and that's not a bitter statement. Like,
Passion project.
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Project. So if anybody thinks that we pocketed some coin on that, no, not
well,
at all.
and I need money to enter into film festivals also, and that's a biggie because most people don't realize, it costs a lot of money to enter film festivals, and it's not a big return either. You enter 10, hopefully one will accept you. And so if you enter 40, maybe 4 will accept you, maybe, because there's just so many variables into getting accepted. And even if you have an outstanding film, it may not be what they're looking for, or it might be, another film might be the same genre or the similar plot, and they choose that one over yours, or the running time might not fit into their programming. So there's just so many different things that you have to take into consideration, that if you want your film shown, you have to spend money to get it out there, and marketing for it, and you have to spend a little bit of money for the fulfillments, the perks that you offer them. I'm still trying to get all that done, and for those of you who donated to our campaign, thank you. You'll be getting your stuff shortly.
It's coming. It's coming.
Talking about the food, before set, we hadn't had breakfast. I thought I wasn't allowed because I was supposed to be a starved child in the wilderness.
Method acting.
Method acting.
We did not
So
starve any
early.
children on set.
Nobody was starved on set. I can attest to that.
Except Chris.
Wait, did I start?
You didn't notice? Good.
I was about to make a comment about Gabby being Christian Bale, and now I'm wondering if I'm being right. Oh no, my God.
You won't get it, sweetie. It's okay.
So how did you three get involved? We'll start with Deso. When did Steve approach you about being part of Sur'vi?
So Steve comes to me. Well, actually, I approached them.
Mhm.
They were having a meeting, and I was asked to join. When I get there, it really boiled down to Steve just turning to me and saying, "I would like you to be the fight choreographer for my film." Okay. What do I got to do? Where do I start from there? So, it really became the project for me to learn how to do choreography. We had done one for an event at a school once using lightsabers, but this included, like regular fighting, street fighting ish, and some other weapons that we had never really held before in a combat scenario. And
Like a sword.
Like a sword.
It's one thing
That
training with
breaks.
our wooden practice swords, but this was trying to make it look real,
Yeah,
which was different.
Trying to give it that edge of people who know what they're doing. And really, I want to say thank you, Chris. Thank you, Anna, for stepping up and doing things that I hadn't. Even though I told you this is what I wanted, you actually were able to perform it. And I want to say thank you because you guys really did that for me. I know Steve came to me a couple times and said that there would be no film without me, but really I just put what I wanted, and these two make it happen. So, but as far as like that day, I just realized how much I needed to learn in a very short time so I could move forward and actually be contributing.
And we
to the
trained
film.
something like 3 hours a day after you got home from work. We would watch videos, tutorials, how-tos, trying to take in as much knowledge, and then we would go outside and we would rehearse and we would practice and we would break down what worked, what wouldn't work. If I dropped the staff, I gave myself the assigned, I have to do this many burpees if I mess up. So I did not drop the
Staff
staff
training.
after a couple hours. And then we realized after the film how much we had learned even going forward. So we watch it now and we discuss, oh, well, we would have done this differently.
Yeah. Anytime you look back on something that you've done, you go, oh, I could have done this. And it's always a learning experience from that. But yeah, when he said, I need you to do this, staff training was one, sword training was involved. We discussed how are you going to hold a knife to do this and this and this. And then, when it comes to just barehanded fighting, what style are we going to go with? Are we going to use, just boxing? Are we going to, and we really had to delve into that. I really had to delve into that and decide what I wanted to do as far as each individual. This person's going to have learned this because of their previous history. This one's going to, I have sheets of character information for stuff that hasn't happened yet just from this film that we put together. So,
well, I think the one of the hardest things is that the three of us have some level of martial arts training, and of course, the fighting that we were doing was nothing even. We were trying not to be as sophisticated. So when instinct would take over.
Fighting.
Right, and we'd be like, "Oh, we can add a spin kick." No, you can't do a spin kick because it's too sophisticated.
Chris, no spin kicks.
Well, what if I do this? No, that's too sophisticated.
Chris is telling on himself.
Jackie Chan. No.
Well, no, there's a couple of times that we were just like, no, we can't have Anna do that because it's a little too like flair. There was supposed to be no flair. It was just
not too much flair. Right.
Too much flair.
That's, we kind of I wanted to go for Anna's character more of a kung fu because self-taught. Right. Animalistic and go from there, but stripped down and more brawling street fighter than hours and hours of focused training.
Well, that also goes back to the aesthetic of like a Tarantino film where we didn't want that. We didn't want that aesthetic pretty side to it. It was straightforward struggle instead of, oh, isn't this a pretty fight? It's, yeah, the fight's in there, but we're really trying to get something done. It's defense, it's protection, it's all these different things combined, not, ooh, didn't that look nice?
The fight is definitely...
it was pretty, though.
Still the fight is still do what you need to do to survive. Yeah. And that's I think...
That's what we were focusing on, what you said we should focus on, and that's what we worked with you on.
So, and anytime,
that was from day one.
Anytime Dessa was like, well, what can we do here? We would, I think at first instinct again would be like, oh, we can do this. No, it's too flary. And then we would be like, no, let's just do it simple and see what happens. And it came out looking like we were, trying to tear each other apart and not make it look pretty. Just go for it.
And we did step it out. We did like the one movement at a time. Okay, this goes here, this goes here. And it ended up me going, I don't know. Something's off, something's missing. And then I wrote out a script in 15 minutes and went, this works. And then we tried it out. With the explanation, we did dirty it up a bit with some of the movements, and then we end up stripping down or adding this or that just to give it a more realistic. How would this feel? How would this fill in at this particular, just this very moment? And it really broke down that way.
And what was really nice too is that the fight scene felt like it was character driven, and Desso, you did a really good job with understanding the characters and having the motivation come out of the characters as opposed to just they fight and let's do something kind of cool.
That was the original script. They fight. This happens.
It was in bold though.
It was in bold. It was important, but it wasn't filled in.
But yeah, he walked through and blocked everything out from as far as, okay, here's this movement, here's this. And really the movie hinged so much on that fight scene. And if we didn't have something that was really good, the movie wouldn't have succeeded.
And Derek, I know you probably want to move on, but I do have to say this to Desso, all kudos to you, man, because when we started doing the choreography, I couldn't understand why it was so contained. And Desso literally went out to the site of the film. And when we rehearsed a fight that he had mapped out in his mind of the area that we had to work. And I didn't understand that at first. And it was a little frustrating because I was like, well, why can't we spread this out a little more?
Yeah, to flesh that out.
And then the first time I see the site, I was like, Desso's a goddamn genius. Oh my God.
To flesh that out, it was, we had to practice in basically a field area. And, it was, and keep it contained to a very small location, which when you see the film, you'll understand. But it's constantly, hey, why don't we do more of this? No, that's not going to work for what we have available, for the space that we have available. And I once again, I appreciate you following through and listening, and I'm glad it all played out for you. So
Like I said, genius.
It's great how you were managed to choreograph that fight for that small of an area. Because I remember the first time I came over, we did.
we had to clear space for your head.
Yeah, because I came over for like the fitting, and we did some rehearsals and stuff, and we went out to the site. And I'm looking at this little bitty alcove in the trees. I'm like, we're supposed to do everything in here?
And we
Okay.
did.
Jason was like, someone gonna die.
So him actually choreographing the fights and putting it together and teaching her actually is how I learned about this.
Yeah, doing the choreography and stuff because we were like, you just need to sit here so we know where not to land.
And parents, that's how brutal violence will get your children into the arts.
Yes, absolutely. I ended up filling in during the rehearsal portions for Anna's sake. I ended up filling in not just for who I ended up filling in for in the movie here, but I also filled in for Tanja. So I ended up with a lot of the bashings and bruisings as well. Just throwing that out there.
I never doubted you for a minute. It's all you other people who don't know what it's like to get hit by Anna.
And by the way, during rehearsals, Chris kept saying, "No, hit me for real."
He did, and we kept saying no.
Like, safety first. You're not gonna get beaten up for real.
I believe in selling it.
And then we get on set, and then like, she's really hitting me.
You know what? You know what? Okay, so
Look it
you
up,
say that now,
Buttercup.
but here's the funny thing. I never broke character after I got hit. I
Sorry.
stayed in character. But if I touch your ass, I will say sorry. I totally ruin it.
Priorities.
I totally get priority.
Priorities.
I get hit in the junk. I will stay down and make it look like I was hit in the right area. But if I touch your butt, I'm totally gonna ruin the scene.
Well, Vaughn, you're being so patient right there.
I don't even know how to follow that. I really don't. I just had to make him look fabulous.
You did.
You
She's
did.
the award winner.
Yeah, you're the
here.
award-winning member of the panel.
Stop. Well, I would thank you. I mean, it wouldn't because I mean, it was you guys. The reason you wore it so fabulously. I got to design this really cool thing. I mean, if people know me, I do a lot of, I'm 501st. And so a lot of stuff I do is like Star Wars things. I do also costume for Pensacola State College. But when I was given the script by Steve and we had that first meeting, it's like, okay, this is going to be cool. So mine starts racing and it's, and it was the way it was described is, okay, you don't want it to be Mad Max, but you don't want it to be this, but to try to come up with costumes for these characters that don't look like something you've already seen. It's challenging because you don't have resources like, Hollywood does. You have what you have here in town and, you go and you buy things and you repurpose them. And I had a lot of fun in my driveway with leather on the sidewalk. Like, what are my neighbors going, what you doing, Lavana? I'm just making some costumes. Don't mind me. But and when you costume for theater or film, you have to do character analysis. It's like, what would this person wear? And why are they wearing it? Otherwise it's just clothes. Mm-hmm. Everything has to have a purpose. And since there was fighting and movement involved, they obviously have to be able to move in this stuff. And it's like, you can't put them in like a bias cut dress or anything like that.
That was the most impressive thing, though, was the fact that it was functional.
Well, I mean, it
could
was
move
comfortable
yeah.
despite that Florida heat. We're in 5 layers of clothes, but you still made it feel like we just could keep going.
I mean, when I saw, all the work putting it together, I'm going, oh my God, it's like, I hope this is what Steve wants. And then when everybody was in costume, I was like, oh my God, this is really cool. It was really cool. But, for example, for Anna's character, she has this, if you haven't seen it yet, this piece, I call it the potholder Jedi thing, because I wove it, but it was the colors needed to be, it was like her camouflage. It was also her armor. It was also very protective, but it was like camo. And she was layered. It was protective clothing. For the guys, you'll see that they have like a cut, like a motorcycle club, but they were, in essence, they were a gang, you know.
And Jason had a merce.
He did. It was very fabulous. But just for me as a costumer, it really helped me grow, like learning new skills and everything on how to weather costumes, how to distress things. Because I haven't really done a lot of that. I haven't had to. I used it, by the way, when we just did 1984. I was out in my driveway again, so I use those like new skills that I learned. But I really, it was such a cool project for me. And I thank Steve for bringing me in on this. I don't know what else to say about it.
Well, after I wrote the script, I realized that there were several elements that had to be, that were essential for this to be a success. One was the fighting. If we didn't get that right, the whole movie would fall apart. But the other was the costumes, because what the goal, and I think Deso, Jason, one of you said earlier, the whole intent was, we don't know when this took place. Is it in the future? Is it in the past? All I know was it is not modern, and we couldn't have any reflection of modern clothing, modern items.
No screen tees.
Right. And so Levon's goal was to create this whole world with the costumes. I mean, we didn't have very many props. We had, a staff and some swords and a few other items here and there that Kyle and Heather Warner had put together.
Some food.
For us. But the costumes had to sell it and had to really sell the characters. And let me tell you, I mean, the wardrobe fittings were one thing, but that Saturday when we got on set and got everybody in costume and the cast was together in their wardrobe, it was like it transitioned. And we realized this is for real. And it really brought the characters and the whole world to life.
And you make fun of the merce. I got to thank you for the merce, because I had somewhere to keep my gum and my keys on.
So when Steve approached me about how do you feel about this, I will admit, when he was talking about costuming and stuff, I floated your name. I was like, Levon should do this. And it was one of those, we were both kind of like, will she have time? Will she be able to do this? And I remember that first sit down with you.
I'll make time.
When you brought, you already had everything printed out. You already had all these ideas. You knew who was going to be what character. So you had everything laid out, and you brought that excitement to the table. You already had these brilliant ideas on, well, here's why this won't work. And we discussed, it felt like, The Incredibles, no capes type stuff where you're like,
and no one had a cape.
Well, no, but the different types of gloves that you see in the Mad Max type films or whatever, you were breaking down why that may look good on screen, but here's why, if it's going to actually be practical, it won't work. And you're going over everything point by point. It was that moment of, oh my God, this is really happening. And that's when you walked in and Steve's like, I need to talk to you. But it was in that moment where you're putting all these papers in front of me going, which of these elements do you like? And you're going over why you picked those. It really demonstrates why during the film festival, it stood out. Because you're looking at all of these other films, which were really well done and they're beautiful to look at, but the costumes in yours were 100% unique. They were 100% Levon, but with each of us in mind. And it was amazing. It wasn't just anyone could be stuffed into that outfit. You kept us in mind.
So Steve calls me and goes, so Levon's going to be the costume designer. And I was like, cool, that's legit. We're going to be awesome then. At the end of that conversation.
Wow, you just summed up my rambling in just a couple moments.
No, I mean, that was literally the conversation. He's like, Levon's doing costumes. And I was like,
next bit of business.
So
hearing Levon's working, you're like, yeah, I'm a professional.
Yeah, I was like, my response is giddy, and I don't want to show that to you, so I'm going to hang up the phone.
No, it was a wonderful project for me. As you know, it gets, oh my God, I gotta get these things done. Oh my God. But I was like, I have progress photos, by the way. I could put a book together of before and after things, just for me, for record, for my notes and but it just, there's a reason people wore what they did. There's a reason the colors were what I picked. I mean, they're not going to be in neon pink or something. It's going to be very earthy.
I don't know, Vilker and neon pink.
Well,
Can we do a post-apocalyptic 1980s version of it?
I just
The
want him in a
shoulder
mankini
pads?
that's neon pink going, hello there.
And shoulder pads.
Hold on.
I don't think anybody wants to see that.
Oh, hold on.
Disagree.
Yeah,
I disagree completely.
If I buy you that, will you do that?
Got to buy me dinner first.
He still owes
You heard
a
it here
cup of
first,
coffee.
folks. Buying Jason dinner in a mankini. I'm going to hear that. Hello there.
No, but when you first started to show us some of the sketches of the stuff that was, what we were kind of going to look like, that was when I knew this was going to be awesome, because I saw the sketch that looked like me with all this cool stuff.
Thank you, Dave Bain.
It was just great.
Dave Bain did some of the initial concept art, and it helped sell not only for the actors as far as getting the character, but it helped sell the film with Indiegogo. So thank you, Dave.
Yeah, as soon as I got on set that day and put everything on, it was like, I'm complete now.
I remember the first time all three of us were standing together, and I was just like, we're going to mess somebody up. We're not even going to film this movie. We're just going to go commit highway robberies.
Like I said, it was that energy of let's go do the thing. And it was just amazing. Despite what our roles were in the film, we just all had this bouncy energy, and it's your fault, Levon.
Well, I mean, that first picture, with the five of them, it's oh my God.
I was definitely dressed for the job I want.
Highway robbery.
Well, the cool thing, though, I mean, it was the first day, I mean, it rained. Okay, great. Put these plastic things on your boots, because I just weathered
dainty
them.
marauders.
Do not take the weathering off the boots, because after we do it. But the cool thing, though, about the weather was anytime anybody was on the ground, oh, look, extra weathering. Look, it looks real. I mean, the sweat. I mean, it looked like they wore these costumes. It was like these were their clothes. It wasn't just, I just put this on them and don't get it dirty, please.
Don't smoke and drink coffee, though.
Well, that part.
Yeah, it was Chris is injured on the ground. Just roll around a little bit more. We need some dirt to even out the right side.
But it did. And then, when had to reweather some things, how am I going to make that look like that spot right there that Chris did when he was in the mud. But the sweat and everything, I mean, it added to, I mean, it looked real. It wasn't just, I took it off the hanger and put it. Yes, exactly.
Ray, what about you, sir? Pass the mic.
I remember it was another late night Facebook chat between me and Steve when he pitched not really pitched the idea, but he said, I'm thinking about turning this into a movie, and he sent the script to me. But as a testament to Steve's writing, the first time I read it, I got back to him and I said, Anna would really do a real good job as the main character. And he goes, I wrote it for her. And I was like, oh, well, there you go.
I don't see what you guys are talking about. It makes me feel weird.
You're like the warrior woman of Pensacola.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, who's a badass chick that could be doing this? And everybody's first response, Anna, in unison at the same time.
Yeah, you can hear the echoes through Pensacola when people do that. But when I read the script, I thought it was really cool. I like that aesthetic of the post-apocalyptic setting, and I like that you left it ambiguous, and she didn't know if it was the future or the past and everything. And I wasn't about to go, oh, let me do this. I just knew I wanted to be a part of something that I knew was going to be cool from the get-go. So I just said, Steve, if you need any help whatsoever, I don't care if you just need someone to hold a boom mic or
it's the same exact thing I told him.
Yeah.
What do you need, man? You want me to go run and get coffee for you?
Yeah. So yeah, whatever. I'll put a GoPro on my head, run around, get some B-roll. I don't know, whatever you need. So I honestly was very surprised and a little humbled when he asked for me to be second assistant director. I honestly was full on expecting him to just not that the role, any role is small, but there's a lot of responsibility I felt with that, a lot of trust there. And I consider Steve a very good friend. I know that there's a difference between your friendships and your professional relationships. And Steve and I've never worked together before. He knows I've done little rinky-dink YouTube videos way back when.
They're awesome.
Truth.
I disagree. But no, I knew not having that history with Steve as far as working with him, I really didn't know how to take him saying, "Would you like to be my second assistant director?" With knowing the responsibility that would take, I almost wanted to say no, because I'm like, this is really, really cool. I don't want to be the guy that ruins it because I do something wrong. But and he mentioned like being, because I was at what I called home base. I wasn't really on set where the action was, and he's like, "Are you sure this is okay? Because you don't really get to. This isn't the glitzy side. You don't get to see the filming." And I'm like, "I'm helping. I'm making things work. I have my gear in this machine. That's fine."
Well, then you doubled up, because you would still come out and make sure that we were okay. You were very personable, and you couldn't tell it was your first time doing it because you were right there making sure everything was okay. I know for me, like you said, there are no small roles. I was mesmerized watching every little part of this take place. Like when we're filming up against that tree, the guy standing around us, and I'm looking at their arms just holding still. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way I could do that. But you being up at the house, running water, asking, "Are you okay?" Going up to Gabby, "Do you need a break?" You were on top of everything. So it was not a small bit by any means.
And making a movie is a lot of logistics. And yeah, the creative part, that's, the fun. But we also, it's almost like an army where you have different divisions that all have to work in unison for the final goal. And the final goal is to have this film produced. And without the logistics, everything falls apart. And so, having Ray help me through pre-production was a huge, huge help. Catherine Bishop was my first assistant director, who basically runs the set. And she was out of town for like a month leading up to it. And so she had to jump in like a week before to try to bring all the logistics on her end together. But the second AD has to basically make sure that everybody gets checked in, that everybody is in their place where they belong to get things rolling, to make sure that craft services and the catering is in place, that the bathrooms are, the people
location
have access
scouting.
To it. Yeah, he helped me with location scouting. He helped me with just so much getting the food put together, because we didn't have someone dedicated to handle craft services, which is, like all the snacks and everything. So we did some late night shopping. A lot of things. I would call them up and just bounce ideas off and say, okay, we need to think about this. What do we have to do in order to make this happen? Yeah. And without you at my side, because I was handling directing and producing, because someone didn't want to produce.
Just leave the man with the most alone.
Which
just
I'm
keep saying
very
hello
glad.
there and remind him.
I'm
Just
very
keep
glad
saying
the
hello
role
there.
that you took. So, but bringing on all that responsibility and taking on that responsibility myself, I really needed someone in that position. And thank you very much for doing that.
From the bottom of my heart, I don't like you. I've never liked you. No, Ray. You kept Steve sane. Ray would pop up like a magician. Like if you needed something, be like, "Man, I could really use a water." Where did you come from?
Yeah, that's how it
in
felt.
my pocket?
Well, like you said, that professional side of things, all of us relatively know each other. Either we know each other through the community, we've heard about each other in some way, and you have to, while you're on set, separate that friendship side. But when you separate it, there's still that underlying in the back of your head, if I screw this up, is he never going to talk to me again? So it's an interesting feeling. Like, I know for you, it must have been odd. I need you to check in. You have to put aside that, yeah, we're friends. Right now, we have this to do. That, Levon, get yourself together moment. And then when you're offset, we can laugh and joke around. But when you're there, everyone has their part. And Steve made sure we understood that you do not touch wires. You do not do this. You do not do that. unless you are told to, or that is your job. And from my point of view, I actually respected and really appreciated how laid out everything was. Here's what you need to do. Focus on that only. It was a battle plan that was well executed. But even though we're all friends, we work together really professionally, in my opinion. And I really enjoyed that.
The overall experience even from day one, or even I guess even through pre-production, working with Steve, the energy and chemistry between everybody was just almost surreal. There wasn't a single moment where there was any kind of frustration, at least on my side. Well,
Chris and I kind of
come down to the set one
I had
day.
to take Chris to the side a couple times and tell him to breathe. But
let's as far as from my perspective, because I mean, like I said, I wasn't on set, but whenever click.
Here's the thing.
You just caught up.
With any production of this magnitude, there's always going to be challenges that you have to overcome. And one of the things that you did that we relied on that you did really well was keep things sane backstage. You know, at the house that was our base camp, we knew that things were taken care of, and that, and you know, like the toilet that was working in the house, the one toilet decided to not work, and so we had to shuttle people to the nearest gas station. and things like that. That it's like, okay, we have issues that are outside of where the cameras are, and I knew that you would be able to take care of that, and you did, and you handled it.
It never felt like, oh my God, the world's going to end, or another thing. It was always, okay, well, this happened. Let's fix that and move on. That was the energy you got in the house.
Absolutely.
So.
And just in the beginning of the day, I mean, the process that we had to go through was when the actors showed up, they had to go through, was it costuming first and then makeup? And we had Lisa, I'm sorry, Lisa, what is your last name? Van Amber? Lisa,
Yes.
I apologize, Lisa, for forgetting your last name. She was our wonderful makeup person. We had Lenny Cruz that was doing the special effects makeup, who was amazing. And so the actors had this process that they had to check in. They had to go to costuming. They had to go to makeup, and they had to go to the special effects makeup, and then go back to straight makeup, and then report to the AD team to be taken out to location to start. So all this is going on while the crew is checking in and having to go to their departments and try to, and of course hair and makeup, and that's all working. In you were managing all that, where I didn't have to worry about that. I had other things to worry about. So it's it is a like an army that's working efficiently, and fortunately it was done efficiently.
I did my best. I will say one perk being at home base was watching the footage come back. So while they're
air conditioning
and that too, I did feel sort of guilty. I guess that's half the reason why I would jump out when I had a free moment and check on set if everyone is okay. Because I'm like, I'm not just going to sit here. I have to keep moving. But I did like when they were shuttling but bringing the hard drives in to get dumped and then brought back out, and watching them go through the footage. Even though I wasn't on set, I'm looking at what Kevin
Moldovan, our director of photography,
was shooting and everything, and I'm just like, this is real. Like I'm sitting there going, like, I wish I had an editing bay. I just roughly put some of this together. This looks amazing. Like, seriously, some of the shots are just and they weren't even color corrected, half that stuff. Like, I'm looking at them raw and I'm just like, that's gorgeous right there. So, but
and let me take this opportunity to give a shout out to Kevin. He was unfortunately not able to make it tonight. He's out of town. I really wanted him to be here to be able to talk about the aspect because a huge part of making a movie, of course, is the photography, the cinematography. And Kevin is a professional and came in with his equipment, brought some of his crew that he's worked with on other projects in, and came in from He had like an hour and a half drive to drive in from where he lives in Fort Walton Beach to our location in Cantonment. And just is a thorough professional. And it was
and a good guy.
Yeah,
Just
he's
really
very
nice
easy
guy.
to work
Yeah.
with. He's very easy.
I think for the first time since I left film school, I have worked with a director of photography, and I don't mean disrespect for other people that I've worked with, but I truly felt like we were a team and I could rely on him to do what needed to be done without conflict. And that he wasn't coming in from an ego perspective. He was coming in from, I need to get this shot in the best manner possible. And he had
And it looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
It really does.
And he had some great ideas. And he had to deal with me. that was the
He
biggest
talked you down a
challenge.
couple times. Like, it's okay, Steve. It's okay.
But because I was having to produce and direct, I was having and do the Indiegogo campaign, I had so much on my plate that I was kind of losing my mind. And as we were getting closer to production, I realized I didn't have a shot list. I didn't have storyboards. These are things that from a director, and I did a lot of rehearsing with the actors, but you have to have a game plan going in. You have to walk into the set knowing what you're going to shoot. Otherwise, it's going to be complete chaos. And so, the couple of weeks leading up to it, I'm trying to figure out, how do I shoot this fight scene? During the
With an
rehearsals.
iPhone 5. That's how you do it, with an iPhone 5.
Well, we did. I mean, actually, while we were rehearsing, I got a lot of shots that it's like, okay, the angle looks good. But then
I would love to see a cut of the movie with all the iPhones.
Get off the ground, Chris. Stop crawling on the ground,
Right.
Chris.
No, it's basically like, and Simon says, freeze. And we're all like,
Yeah,
it
that's.
seems like now I got to get this angle.
What if I crawl out from the bushes like this? Chris, stand up. But I want to do this. So we go to film, and Chris is still on the ground, and Steve's just staring at him like, I'm recording, just go.
So, but trying to translate that into something that I can communicate to Kevin in pre-production, so he can plan, because there's certain rules of filmmaking that you have to follow. You don't want to cross the 180 line, and you want to make sure that you get the establishing shots and then move in for close-ups and know basically so you can figure out what the audience understands the geography of the scene. And when you're dealing with 5 characters that are moving in from different directions, and then having to, we have people that are dying and fighting and falling over dead bodies, and where do you put the camera? And it's great for the actors that, okay, I go here. Okay. And now the camera has to point at you. And not only that, but we have crew and we have other things that are necessary from
Coolers.
lighting. Yeah.
You could hear Benny Hill music as the crew had to go from one side to the other, to the other, to the other, to the other for filming.
Or the construction crew that picked the best day ever to begin construction as a train goes by at the same time.
I hope we're not totally off point. By
No,
the
no,
way.
this is all good. It's all good.
So anyways, Kevin brought that all together and was able to be my rock during the production, and sometimes saying, you got the shot, let's move on.
That was towards the end of the second day, really, because there was so much going on at once during that time, trying to get everything together, that it was, and I know that you and I discussed that when we did pickup filming, I wish I'd done it one more time, but I saw his point of view, and it became an interesting discussion on that, which you guys taught us a lot about those needs because of that interaction. So I appreciated you guys being open with the cast instead of like, no, go away, that's none of your business. You and Kevin both took time to say, well, okay, here's why we're doing it, when we weren't in the middle of needing to get something done. If we had a moment, you didn't mind explaining it. And we really appreciated that, so we were able to work around those needs too.
I learned that half of us want to own Kevin's camera.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Right.
That is a static 54%, not just half of it. It's
Yeah.
half.
I think that camera actually costs more than my house.
Yeah. Actually, no. It's only $5,000. That's without all the lenses and
Jason, what kind
accoutrements
of
that
house
he
do you
had.
live in?
I looked it up while we were on set.
I
Actually,
live in a box.
It's a camera box.
well, most of everybody on set has done something in film or podcasting, right? Kevin pulls this camera out, and you hear all of us nerd boys go, "Ooh, girl!"
Yeah.
And then, of course, we all inch closer. We're like, "Hey, what kind of camera is that? What does it do? Is that a monitor? Can it do? Oh, you have a guy that can focus it with that little thing. And what else can it do?" And of course, Steve's like, "You're on set to act." Yeah, cool, Steve. So.
Well, and we had to rent this harness for him, and so it wasn't a steady cam. It had this thing, this contraption that sat on his hips, and it came up over his head, and it had a wire that came down to be able to kind of balance it. It basically just took the pressure off of him, so he didn't have the heaviness
It was
on his
amazing.
shoulders.
A harness developed by some Swedish.
Yeah. And because we had a lot of moving shots, and even though it was still kind of handheld looking, I didn't want a lot of shaky cam in it. But that allowed him to be able to move around and get different angles without it hurting his body.
And still plays so well.
And it was really funny watching him walk around with this big harness.
Well, I was like super impressed when we did the running scene, and they pulled out those they look like gymnastic bars. Right. And yeah. Right. And they put the camera on the rails, and they're just like, run a little bit slower. And they're like chasing us with the camera on these rails.
The hardest direction is about 3/4 slower, and you're suddenly trying to determine your speed. And it's like, what does that even mean?
You're like,
now?
you're like mathematically, like, if I run 7.5 miles per hour,
You suddenly forget how to run. You're looking at your legs like, what are you even doing right now?
I started to get worried. If I jog lighter, are my man boobs gonna jiggle more?
You just kind of start like,
Huh?
Steve, like this, like, what do you mean? He's like, do that. And I was like, what did I just do?
No, I was right there with you, Chris. I would be running sound, and I'm just leaning over. Like, what kind of camera is that?
It's was it Ursa Minor? I think is what it was called, or something like that. And all I know is I asked Kevin, I'm like, oh, so is that your main rig? And he's like, no, I've got like 5 or 6. I got like a top end Sony and a Panasonic and a Red Dragon. And I'm like, I want your life.
He's jealous of you, Kevin.
Yeah, no, please. Derek's jealous too.
No, absolutely.
We're rowing the same jealousy boat.
Speaking of Derek,
The third one.
you've been asking questions throughout this whole thing, but Derek served a couple different roles on the film. He was one of our Indiegogo campaign contributors in what credit did you get? Associate producer? Co-producer. And so as co-producer, he was trying to make sure that the film was as successful as it could be. He actually came on board to run sound for us, be this location sound mixer. He unfortunately was not able to make it the first day.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had Jerry Branch come in. And now neither of you had really done this particular type of sound before.
Not to that level, no.
So what's it?
You called him Jerry Branch.
I said Jeremy.
Did you?
It may not have come out.
But now we're going to call him Jerry.
Focus, boys. Focus.
Shout out to Jerry
I
Branch. If he's watching.
apologize,
Jerry Branch.
Jerry Branch, if your name sounded wrong because
I didn't
can't
hear it
pronounce.
wrong.
Our good friend Jer.
I try to enunciate, but sometimes I slur my words. Okay. Anyways, so why don't you explain a little bit about your experiences on set?
Everyone stare at him.
Well, so much like most everyone here, it was through a late night Facebook conversation with Steve.
Does
And
this
he-
happen a lot?
Yeah,
It's the only way we communicate.
Yeah.
He doesn't do that with me anymore.
It's
We're
always
like,
after
we
10
feel
o'clock at
super
night.
special. Late night
Yeah.
conversation with Steve Weiss. Everybody's like, well, I have him at night too.
Yeah.
I feel so betrayed. How many people you talk to late at night, Steve?
LeVon, this is like 1 o'clock in the
Not the
morning.
only
It
one.
has to be after
That wasn't
10:30
me.
at night.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then the cutoff is usually
I'm not
1 a.m.
probably
So
not.
Yeah, no,
my
it
question
like
is-
starts around then. Yeah.
My question is, how many conversations are you having at the same time?
I usually Okay.
Sorry.
Mystery solved.
Now I'm curious. Like, I'd love to see, like, you have like 4 different windows of it. All right, respond to Derek, respond to Jason, respond to Ray. Oh crap! I gotta write Derek back again.
And he's like, "Sorry, Jerry, I need to get back to you."
You don't talk to me like you used to, Steve. I see why now. You're distracted.
Like sending the right message to the right person.
That could get awkward.
Anyway, so he sent me the script. I read it and I was just, blown away by it. And I had the visual in my head and I was like, this could be really good. And he's like, well, how would you like to run sound? I was like, absolutely. Cause I hadn't done any film work in that time up to, I think, 4 years, like any type of film stuff, period. So the last thing we did was one of the Pensacon commercials that we filmed out in that same area back in, I want to say 2014, 2015, something like that. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it on set for day one because of my work schedule. But a funny story, when I showed up for day 2, because I was, of course, looking forward to seeing Jason in person because we do our retro gaming show and we talk pretty regularly. But I walk in and I see who turned out to be Deso from the side, and I start to walk towards him, and he turns around. I was like, "You're not Jason." So I text Jason. I was like, "Where are you?"
Yes, I am.
So it was a lot of fun. I mean, honestly, I just loved watching you guys act, and was blown away by 1, Kevin's gear, and 2, just how he used it. Yeah. So it was really, really fun. I wish we had video of Steve and myself filming the sound effects. So
That would have been brilliant.
Picture Steve in his front yard, just randomly running in circles, rolling on the ground, all while this guy stands over him with a boom pole and a microphone.
Wait a minute.
There's no footage of this. Can we reenact it?
Why is there no footage of this?
Right?
I didn't have my video camera.
Friendship
We're gonna do
over,
this all
man. I'm
again.
done.
I know. I failed.
So your comment about thinking Dessa was Jason, this is a story between Levon and I where they're doing some filming where I wasn't needed. And Steve and Jason had just discussed that he's not going to be able to come back for the second day of filming. So I whispered to Levon jokingly, I was like, well, I shave my husband's head all the time. Yeah, he's a little bit shorter, but they look kind of the same. And Levon's like, maybe you should mention it to Steve. And it was kind of 50-50 on Steve's reaction of either yes or no. Just very blunt. So I was like, okay, we'll do this. So Steve walks by. I was like, hey, Steve, Levon and I were talking. I threw you under the bus so I wouldn't go down alone. And it was, hey, if he can't come back tomorrow, what if we dress Deso up and, just filmed his, body? And so he goes, actually, that's a great idea. Hey, Jason. And walks off. And I was like, looked at Levon. Oh my God, it worked. And we just kind of stared at each other for a second. And it was like, hey, Deso, we need to talk to you for a second.
Literally, when they're on the ground and you can't see the face, just the back of
It's
the
a
head.
game.
It's a
You're just
drinking
like,
game.
is that my husband or is that not my husband?
Deso or Jason, everyone, it's a drinking game now.
Yep.
So
Well, I get this text first thing the next morning of him in full costume with the scar, and he's got the goatee, and I was like, holy crap.
There's actually a picture of Remy, Chris, and myself, and they're
That's
both
the one
looking
you
at
sent.
me, and I'm standing here like, yep, I'm Jason. And they're both like, what?
I remember when you
Brilliant.
came out of makeup and after they put the scar on you, and I literally stop. I have my little clipboard and I look up and I go, "Whoa!"
It was uncanny. It really was.
Levon also very quickly resized it, like right there. Like you could hear the comic book sound effects of and it fits. You're just like, okay, we're good.
It's the magic of filmmaking.
Absolutely.
That's
Magic of Levon.
Yeah, the magic of Levon.
Jinx.
I think one of my favorite parts though was when we had messed something up in the choreography and you were on the ground. You're like, "What did you mess up? I can't see."
True statement.
Stay still, Destin.
It was also me because I'm married to him going, I bet he's asleep right now.
I'm not asleep. And by the way, this is the second movie that I've done where an actor has had to lay on the ground for an entire day. So you're not alone in that.
You're not special anymore like those late night chats.
Best acting job ever.
I'm sensing a pattern, Steve.
We might need to have an intervention after the podcast.
That's actually what this is becoming now. Is
So
an
if I
intervention.
present another script to y'all that has a character lying on the ground in the middle of the woods,
It's me.
just say, hey, it's just something different.
No, actually, I think we're just going to start referring to you as Steve Dead Bodies Wise.
That's just the crew.
We took this off track just a little.
No, it's all good. But I mean, running sound was fun. I mean, I had fun, watching everybody do what they do while I just hit the record button on a little recorder and hold a microphone.
Now, you also were doing the post-production sound edit.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the challenges? And since you're the only one here that's from representing post-production, what is that experience like?
I hate footsteps. No, it was a very interesting challenge, because you also, when you originally asked me to do sound, you said, how do you feel about doing post-production sound editing? I said, well, I've never done it before, but I'd love to give it a shot. So, we went through some tutorials and you gave me some advice on what to do. And then you sent over the files, which I know we had a little bit of a hassle with that, but it all worked out. So, I put my headphones in and I start to, try to match everything up. And it's like an hour and a half later and I'm done with like maybe 4 sets of footsteps. So it's very, very detailed and very particular type work. So I gained a huge respect for people who do post-production sound.
Yeah, the whole post-production process is quite involved. It's been a learning curve for me. And like the camera that Kevin used, the Blackmagic Ursa.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
The footage we were shooting on 4.6K, even more than 4K, and natively widescreen. So the aspect ratio was a wider aspect ratio than normal, high definition. And the editing program that we use, Adobe Premiere, cannot handle that footage. And so we had to process it through another program, DaVinci Resolve, and exported it out, but use what's called proxies, which is another copy of the file that's in standard high definition. Yeah.
We all, us non-spec types, just checked out for a moment.
But the point is, it's like this is just to get the footage to where we can start editing it. And then, so I turned it over to Max Nadsity to edit the picture. And so we went through that process and kind of got it narrowed down. And then from that point, once we had a working picture edit, then the next step was to try to start laying in, color correction and the sound. Kevin did the color correction, which was amazing. We had AJ Caruso do the music, which was phenomenal.
Yep.
I mean, it is one of the best.
AJ nailed it.
It's one of the best
it was really
scores
good
for a short film that I think I've ever.
And it was also awesome meeting him at Pensacon when he was on the panel with us. Like it was finally cool to like put the face to the music.
Yeah, AJ did the music for Monsters Anonymous too, and whatever movies I make in the future, AJ is the dude. I'm not going with anybody else.
As long as you cast everybody here, and I get to get murdered.
We're going to do shameless plugs, then yeah, we're just going to go all the way in us.
Well, the thing with AJ's music was he approached it from the point of view of what instruments would exist in this world. And so it wasn't like, oh, well, we're going to have a synthesized sound or electric guitars. It was a lot of drums and woodwinds and some piano and things that could conceivably would be from this universe, but still made it sound orchestral. And it just, when I first heard the music, I was like, wow, this isn't amazing. But we had to mix that in and then do the Foley. And I mean, we were out there beating a melon with a baseball bat.
I still owe you a melon, actually.
That's from a deleted scene.
Yeah.
Well, just one of the best parts, like when you sent me the first, cut of the movie and like I'm watching it and I come on screen and you hear like war drums in the background. Yeah. I'm just like, this is the most awesome thing ever.
Jason's missing those days of MySpace when he could actually like make that scene his profile picture and whatnot.
But, as with everything, there's always issues. And in post-production, there's an expression that says, fix it in post, and which is kind of a lazy way of saying, said, we'll just kind of skim over this during the shooting process, and then, and just let the editors worry about it. Well, in the editing, I realized we're missing shots.
Mhm.
That there's things that we really need that we did not get the first time for whatever reason. And so what was it, like 3 months later? I gathered our wonderful cast, minus Jason, but Desso filled in for him for these scenes.
I was dead again.
And we went back to the location, and somehow the weather was exactly the same, which was kind of weird. And we were able to do these pickup shots and insert them into the editing. And
When he says the weather was the same, it was again about, I don't know, 2 hours of rain before we could actually get started. That's the same weather.
So Florida.
yes,
Yeah.
Florida.
but overcast. And so it had the same lighting. So you can't tell what shots were done, other than Chris's beard was a little bit longer. So there's one shot, there's like a close up that like, oh, his beard is longer than it was before. Oh,
Are you gonna edit it like Justice League style?
go in with kind of erase it with computer animation.
Yeah, Steve had waited until right after the clearance date he'd given all of us. He's like, okay, everybody keep your looks the exact same way until this particular date. And we're like, okay, awesome. Date passes. We go get our hair cut. And then he messages me like the next day saying, hey, we need to do pickup shots. And I was like, ugh.
But
He's
she
like,
got to
don't
wear
worry,
her
don't worry.
hood.
It's from the shoulders down. I was like, are you sure?
And she was wearing her hood.
So yeah, so that worked out.
Because Steve had texted me, I was like, we need a shot of Anna kicking you in the leg. I was like, I guess I could come back over for that. Or do that. Do you care if Desso does it? I'm like, no, that's good.
That way you can really kick him.
Yeah. So I guess we'll close by going around the room. What is one? We've touched on a bunch of them, but just it can be your favorite, or it can be what you thought was the funniest on-set story from Sur'vi. Gabby, yep.
Oh. So, my mind blanked. So the last scene with Tanja alive is
Spoiler alert.
so I go to stab him in the leg so she can poke him in the throat with the sharp
Don't give
stick.
too much away.
Sorry. And it originally started with me biting his leg. So on during film, I go to bite him, and we have to cut in the middle of it because I'm actually supposed to stab him.
So you thought that was funny that you're like, no. Oh, okay.
Yeah, sometimes things change on location.
Yeah, but by that time, probably a good thing that you didn't put your mouth onto my leg.
Chris is just like, kill me already. Just make this end.
It was so sweaty, so dirty out there.
I will say that, Levon, that was another thing I want to give you props for, is you could hear the peeling effects of us taking those outfits off, and you're like, nah, it's not a big deal. I'm not grossed out. We're like, a room full of that. But
I didn't even want to like sit in my own car. I was like,
when it comes to favorite stories, I've touched on a few of them. When it comes to, the bloopers of trying to get the fights through, do you think this will work? Do you think Steve will go for it? So it's really hard to pick one anecdote that really stands out. But I just want to say my favorite part of it was the overall camaraderie that we ended up with, and being able to be included in this, that one, you thought of me for this at all. And there is still that lingering fear of, I haven't lived up to that, but you guys have kept me from feeling that way. So thank you. So it's the overall feel to it that I really like.
I'll go last.
oh, thank you. Thank you for putting me on the spot.
You like that though.
Yeah, but it's the 7-Up spot. I still bear a flame for spot 7-Up. I'm old. Man, God. You know what? Rehearsals were probably my favorite part, especially when Steve started to harp on Remy about the way that he said squirrels.
Squirrel.
So
Just say the word squirrel.
so
Squirrel.
he couldn't do it because we're all trying to use accents.
So it started to come out like squirrels. And it just became this like big joke. Like anytime we would cut and we could tell that Steve was still in OK land, we'd be like, squirrels.
We love you, Remy.
We love you, Remy. And this is what you get for not being here.
Wait, everyone. Ready? Cast. 1, 2, 3.
Squirrels.
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 Something, but squirrels too.
Other than every time you fell on me, it was like, oh, sorry. I'm like, stop saying sorry.
I didn't get a single apology the next
Well,
day.
by that time I had learned.
He had burned out his apology allotment.
Like just seriously, like Jason was saying, and I mean, this isn't to poke fun at you, but Anna, there's a part where I'm rolling on the ground and Anna's chasing me basically with her staff. And we had to film that probably about a good 14, 15 times. And every single time she hit me in the back. Or, there was a time when she punched Remy in the head, or a time when I hit her in the face with like her staff. And all those times, none of us break character. As soon as I land on Jason's ass, I immediately just out of instinct say sorry.
What he's leaving out is it was a perfect take. Like we didn't mess a thing up.
And
it
I
was
land.
everyone's like holding their breath, like, oh my God, we're
Hands
gonna
on
get
butt.
this.
And I would go, sorry. Oh, damn it. And Steve's like, I'm going to kill you, Chris.
Exactly.
Oh, and then you had to pull
Even
the
the
sword
11-year-old.
out, but the sword would get stuck.
Thank you, Florida.
No, it's because I had to land a certain way because the sheath had to be like held down and then pulled out like this. And of course, it was like laying, perpendicular to his body. So I'd yank it and it would get locked.
And while they're fighting, I have to make sure that I'm like
slowly
reaching
sliding
over
it into the right
making sure it's
position
in the
and
right
whatnot.
position.
Yeah.
Jason, yours was yelling at Chris.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was. I wish Lemmy was here because there was one time where he was over there retouching up my makeup, and everybody kind of knows how Lemmy is and the way he talks and everything. And he's like,
"Hey, baby, everything's good."
And I'm this big dork and just a big nerd my entire life, and like he's looking at me. I'm like, I got all this stuff on. I'm like, got this persona going on for the movie. He's like sitting there fixing my makeup. He's like, bro, every female on this set is in love with you right now. And I was like, thanks.
From the first hello there.
Yeah.
That's not
Watching them melt.
intimidating at all.
I love Lemmy. He always knows the one thing to say to break it down. Just
And I got to put clothes on. It's okay.
yeah.
Okay. I want to say that a lot of the ones that I would go with are already touched on here. But as far as like my favorite thing about being on the production, I really want to say that the openness to new ideas, because if something didn't work or if it was kind of left ambiguous and you said, hey, what if we did X thing? Okay, well, why would that happen? Well, this is why. That makes complete sense. It's in the film. I can think of at least 3 things where that happened, and I don't want to give any of them away yet. So that'll be in the commentary on the film itself. You'll see it soon.
As far as funny things, other than me chasing Chris around, give me your costume, please.
Why is everything about me being bad?
Chris, it's always about you being bad.
Costume. No, I think for me, and I think Steve mentioned it earlier, that, we're first day, we're waiting because, Florida, and we're all in the room and just everybody in that room getting ready. We're getting ready to make this film. Everybody's in costume. Everybody's like all the crew and everybody's there. I mean, it just, you felt the energy in that room. We're just like, we stopped waiting so we can go make this film. I mean, it was just, it was a wonderful feeling. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
So much energy in that
room. It really
room.
was. It was just beautiful.
Let's do it again.
Yes, please. Charlie.
Yes, please.
With Florida. Extra Florida.
Extra Florida.
I don't know. I don't really have one particular moment like this. Honestly, this whole time sitting here, I'm trying to think of one. I can't really think of one particular moment because the whole weekend honestly just sort of melts together for me. I just liked how everybody was so close knit and working together. to make this film. It didn't. There was no. I don't know anything negative to say about it. It's just everything just fit perfectly, from the casting to the crew to everybody.
I just want to say that we had no prima donnas on set. Everybody worked together really well, and there was no look at me drama.
And there's a lot of, I will comment on everybody, I'll at least comment that everybody here really knew how to take on their roles, because we're all, knowing everybody here, we're all very open, friendly, caring individuals who would gladly go pick something up for somebody or help somebody carry something. So it's hard. I understand why it's hard when Steve's like, don't do anything. You have to keep to your role, but you want to go and help. You want to do something. But seeing everybody really cling to that and know that we have a goal here was astounding to me.
Well, except for me, obviously, from his comments.
Well, I was talking about everybody else.
Yeah. Thank you for ostracizing me even further.
My favorite moment was when I yelled, "It's a wrap."
Fair enough.
Which time?
A funny thing. I think I actually laughed on set at this point. Directing is a little stressful, and there aren't very many times where I can just kind of let loose and kind of put all that aside and actually laugh at something that happened. We had a real sword on set for certain shots, but for the fight, we had to have a fake one. And so Kyle Warner had made these really amazing looking replicas, and they were out of PVC. But, you just look at it, it's like, wow, it's hard to tell the difference between them. And on screen, you wouldn't know. Well, problem is that when they were in the heat of the battle, sometimes they would break. And so he and Heather would be getting the broken swords and going back and gluing them and repainting them and prepping them up. So they were just all weekend long trying to continually fix these swords. And of course the actors, they're in the moment and trying to do their fighting and then snap. And at one point, right on camera, Chris had it in his hand and just snapped right off, and just his reaction was priceless. And that was the time that I actually, watching on the monitor, just lost and started laughing.
That was the story I want to tell for Remy, just real quick. There was a moment where we messed up. He's supposed to lift me up in one of the scenes, and I kick out. But Remy lost his footing or something, and he falls backwards. And we had taken Chris's example of don't break character. And on the other side of the camera, they couldn't see that we had fallen. So we land, and I'm just like, he didn't yell cut. So I roll over, and I just start wailing on Remy after we just legit fell and landed on our backs. And then finally we hear cut, and we're like, what? And they didn't realize we fell until they went back and watched the footage. They're like, that's actually not bad. We didn't end up keeping that, but it was just that moment of Remy and I, that split second of, what do we do? Just let me hit you. And just went with it.
Steve blurts out, I didn't see the cue. That's because we fell.
Well, going back to the sword thing, by the end of the weekend, or the end of the fight scenes, we had one left. And Ann and I are looking at each other, and we're like, we can do this? And then we look up in the air, and we're like, please, Jesus, let us do this.
We got so tired of hearing from off on the side, don't hit so hard. And it's like, you want to do this?
Do you want to be here?
We're not hitting that hard.
So it took 2 takes, and we finished that like actual sequence where we actually needed the fake sword.
There were so many whispered words that were not on script, we're like saying to those words, like,
Well, speaking of the real sword, that was the one I was holding when I had to yank her up off the ground. I was scared to death. I was going to stab her with it. And I'm like gently yanking her up, like pulling her up and putting the sword in everybody. And you guys were just like, yank her.
You can be a little bit. You can be a little bit rougher with her. And Jason's like, I don't want to stab her.
So that's why when I grab her, I'm holding the sword the wrong way, because I knew I'm as clumsy as I am. I was going to just slice
everyone was
off
listening
an arm
to you. No one was paying attention to the sword. They're just like,
yeah.
Well, one other story, and then I do want to kind of do a little close, but the end of the first day of shooting. Now we had rain at the beginning of the day that delayed us, and so we got a couple hours late start. And we were scheduled to shoot until about 7 and then wrap before it got dark. And about 5 o'clock, we just reached a kind of a breaking point in the story. I think, you had just kind of finished up your bit. And I look over and I see black clouds just like rolling. It looked like poltergeist, just
Pack it in.
through. And I turn to Kevin and like, I think we have a problem. And like, yeah, we might want to wrap. Like, it's a wrap. And
As soon as you said that,
Kevin told everybody, all hands grab stuff. And we grabbed the equipment, ran up to the tent that we had set up on the hillside, and just got the equipment under there, and then just started pouring. So I was like, oh, good timing. Because I could just see all this, expensive camera equipment and electronics and whatnot. Just
And the
getting
footage.
Yeah.
But most importantly, the costumes getting wet. We would have all
Yes.
died.
From one person.
But on a kind of serious note, that I do want to say that, this cast and crew, kind of like what Levon was saying, that first morning was just, the energy was amazing. The second day I was in kind of a weird mood, and it was like, I'm just stressed out and we got to get through this. But the thing is that, I pulled together this cast and crew of a lot of people who didn't necessarily do this ever before.
No experience.
Yeah. Now, obviously, Kevin had a lot of experience. Jason's had some experience. And we've had other types of experience. Levon's had a lot of stage work, and has helped us with some of our commercials. Anna has been in a couple of our commercials for Pensacon. But doing these specific jobs, for the most part, it was kind of a new experience. And so we had a lot of green people just kind of figuring out what they were trying to do. And you would not know it being on that set. It was run professionally. I mean, I've worked with professional crews before, and this was probably the best experience I've ever had shooting a film with the cast and crew, and just everybody coming together with positive energy and this sense of, wow, we're really doing something. It's like, those old movies where let's go to the barn and make a play, and put on a show, and we did it. And despite all the challenges of, the day before we were supposed to start shooting, I made the call that, yes, we're going to actually film, because watching the weather the entire week, it was supposed to be storming all weekend long. And so, we were on the verge of canceling it because we didn't know what, and of course, blame myself, because I wrote a script where we're in the middle of the woods the entire time. There's no cover set. And so we had these challenges, and it was, the start of the summer where it was getting hot, and we have costumes and makeup effects and physical effects, and we had a drone that was out there, and we didn't know if we were going to be able to shoot that, and just a fight scene, and all these moving parts that on a professional set with experienced people, it would be daunting. And I'm asking 30 people that, for the most part, had never done this before to come in and do something, and you guys did it, and it was just pretty amazing.
And it turned out awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. And I can't wait for the world to see it. We've had a couple screenings so far. I've entered it into some film festivals. When it showed at Pensacon, we heard some issues with some of the dialogue. We went back and did some what's called ADR, where Anna and Gabby had re-recorded some dialogue. So we're waiting for the final sound mix. And there's a couple
director's cut.
Yeah, there's a couple edits that I'm like, I need to kind of trim that down a little bit.
Zack Snyder's coming in.
If I don't, Josh needs to stop it.
I've called this Steve's Blade Runner, where we're going to have like 40 different versions
But it's
of
going
it.
to take 30 years for us to get there.
Oh my God. We're going to be doing reshoots for that long,
Yes,
Chris.
yes,
you know it.
Once it's done, it's done.
You've
For
said
good.
that before.
35 years from now.
Yeah. It'll be the cane version instead of a staff.
Well, in closing, I just want to say thank you to all of you for taking the
Thank
time.
you, Derek.
It was fun, just being a part of Sur'vi. It was a lot of fun. This was a show that I was actually, ever since we did the film, I was like, I can't wait to have everyone on my show and talk about it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Derek.
for
Hopefully
having
these
us.
stories entertained you.
Thank you.
Bye, Mom.
Hopefully you all enjoyed that look back at the making of Sur'vi. I know I certainly did. It's always fun to go back and look at, fun times and really like what a different place that I was in. And I'm sure a lot of you watching and listening were at that point in time. So again, I do want to apologize for the slight formatting change for this week's show, but it's still a fun look back, but we'll be going back to the live format next week, and my guest will be voice actor Laura Faye Smith, who most of you will know her as the voice of Rosalina from the newest edition of the Super Mario Brothers games, but she's also a really successful voice actor, and voice acting is something that I haven't really talked about that much on really any podcast. So it'll be fun to pick her brain on the voice acting process, and that will air next week at 8 p.m. Central Time on YouTube. Just search for a feature presentation with Derek Diamond. And I think that's going to about do it for this week's show. So let me get our music ready. If you want to subscribe to the show, just head over to linktree.com/featureprezpod. You can find out social media information, where to watch the shows live, as well as where to download on your various podcasting outlets. You can also check out the website, featureprezpod.com. That's going to do it for this week's show. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you guys back here next Monday for another episode of Feature Presentation with Derek Diamond.